The Nubian people hold a significant place in the annals of African history, representing one of the most ancient civilizations in the world. Located primarily in what is today southern Egypt and northern Sudan, Nubia was a land that thrived along the Nile River, whose lifeblood allowed the development of agricultural societies and complex communities. The history of Nubia stretches back thousands of years, encompassing periods of greatness, decline, and resurgence, all deeply intertwined with the rise and fall of Egypt and other regional powers. From the dawn of civilization, Nubians contributed to the cultural, economic, and political landscape of northeastern Africa in profound ways. The origins of the Nubians can be traced to prehistoric times when they lived as nomadic groups in the Nile Valley. Archaeological evidence reveals that Nubia had a complex and vibrant culture as early as the Neolithic period, with settlements characterized by advanced farming techniques and artistic expressions. The region's geographical location provided natural resources such as gold, ivory, ebony, and incense, which would later become integral to Nubia's relationships with other cultures, including Egypt. By the time of the early Bronze Age, the Nubians began establishing permanent settlements. One of the first notable civilizations in Nubia was the Kingdom of Ta-Seti, which is believed to have existed as early as 3500 BCE. Ta-Seti was situated in Lower Nubia, and its people were known for their powerful military, earning the title Land of the Bow for their exceptional skill in archery. The Egyptians, who held Nubia in high regard due to its wealth and military prowess, often sought alliances and engaged in trade with their southern neighbors. This initial interaction was foundational, setting the tone for future relations between the two cultures. Over time, Egypt's growing power led to repeated attempts to control Nubia. During the Old Kingdom period in Egypt, Nubians played a significant role in the Egyptian economy, especially through the trade of luxury goods. However, the Egyptian expansion into Nubia intensified during the Middle Kingdom, circa 2000 to 1700 BCE, when pharaohs sought to control Nubia's valuable resources and strategic territories. As a result, Egypt established a colonial presence in Nubia, particularly in the region around the Second Cataract of the Nile. Egyptian military outposts, temples, and administrative centers were built, integrating Nubia into the Egyptian sphere of influence. Despite Egyptian dominance, the Nubians maintained a distinct cultural identity. Archaeological finds from this period highlight Nubia's distinct burial practices, religious customs, and material culture, even as they adopted many Egyptian traits. As Egypt's Middle Kingdom declined, however, Nubia began to reassert its independence, and by around 1700 BCE, the rise of the powerful Kingdom of Kush in Upper Nubia marked the beginning of a new era. The Kingdom of Kush emerged as the leading power in Nubia and became a dominant force in northeastern Africa. Its capital, Kerma, developed into one of the most impressive urban centers of the time, featuring monumental architecture, vast cemeteries, and evidence of a highly stratified society. Kush was a rival to Egypt, and during the second intermediate period of Egyptian history, the Kushites managed to expand their influence northward, threatening Egypt itself. The Kushites were known for their military strength, and the wealth of their kingdom came from agriculture, trade, and their control over gold mines, which made them a wealthy and formidable power in the region. The rise of the new kingdom in Egypt saw a renewed interest in Nubia, and by the reign of Thutmose I circa 1500 BCE, Egypt had once again taken control of Nubia. This time, the Egyptian presence in Nubia was far more aggressive, and the pharaohs of the new kingdom treated Nubia as a province of Egypt. They constructed massive temples, such as those at Abu Simbel, to solidify their control over the region. Nubian culture became heavily Egyptianized, with the elite adopting Egyptian language, religion, and political systems. Despite this, the Nubians maintained a unique identity, and the blend of Egyptian and indigenous traditions created a hybrid culture that would later play a crucial role in the development of the Kushite Empire. In the 8th century BCE, the tide once again turned in favor of the Nubians. The decline of Egypt's power led to the rise of the Kingdom of Kush, which reasserted its independence and began to push northward. Under the leadership of King Kashta and later his son Pi, the Kushites embarked on a campaign to conquer Egypt itself. Pi's victory over Egypt and the subsequent reign of his descendants, known as the 25th dynasty, marked one of the most remarkable chapters in Nubian history. For nearly a century, the Nubian pharaohs ruled both Egypt and Nubia, bringing a period of stability and prosperity to the region. The Nubian pharaohs, often referred to as the Black Pharaohs, were great patrons of religion and art. They revitalized Egypt's temples, supported traditional Egyptian religious practices, and expanded their empire's influence across the ancient world. The capital of the Nubian dynasty was established at Napata, which became a cultural and religious center. The Nubian kings saw themselves as the rightful heirs to the Egyptian throne, viewing their rule as a restoration of Egypt's former glory. However, the 25th dynasty faced constant pressure from external forces, particularly the expanding Assyrian Empire. By 656 BCE, the Nubian rulers were forced to retreat to their homeland, where they continued to rule from their capital at Napata. Following their retreat from Egypt, the Kingdom of Kush entered a new phase, with its political center shifting further south to the city of Meroe. Meroe became the capital of the Kushite state and the center of a new period of cultural flourishing. The city was strategically located at the crossroads of African trade routes, and its economy thrived on agriculture, iron production, and trade with the Mediterranean world, the Middle East, and sub-Saharan Africa. The Meroitic period, which lasted from about 300 BCE to 350 CE, is often seen as the golden age of Nubian civilization. The Kushites of Meroe developed their own script, known as Meroitic, which remains only partially deciphered, but it reflects a growing cultural and political independence from Egypt. They also established distinctive artistic traditions, including the construction of smaller, more steeply angled pyramids that became iconic symbols of Nubian royal burial practices. Meroe was a center of iron production, and the Kushites became skilled metallurgists, contributing to the broader economic and technological development of the region. Religion played a vital role in the Kushite state, and the Nubians continued to revere both Egyptian gods and their own indigenous deities. The lion-headed god of Piedmok, for instance, was a prominent figure in Meroitic religious practices. Nubian kings and queens were also closely associated with the priesthood, and many rulers served as high priests or priestesses, emphasizing the divine right to rule. Queen mothers, or kandakes, held significant political and religious authority, and several powerful queens ruled Kush in their own right, leading military campaigns and diplomatic missions. However, by the 4th century CE, the Kingdom of Kush began to decline. Internal strife, economic difficulties, and external pressures from emerging powers such as the Aksumite Empire in Ethiopia contributed to the collapse of Meroe. The rise of Christianity in the region, as well as invasions by nomadic groups, further weakened the kingdom. By 350 CE, Meroe had fallen, marking the end of the Kushite state. Even after the fall of Meroe, Nubia remained a region of strategic importance. In the centuries that followed, Nubians continued to play a role in regional politics. The spread of Christianity in Nubia during the 6th century brought about the establishment of 3 Christian kingdoms, Nobatia, Makuria, and Alodia. These kingdoms preserve a rich Nubian heritage and maintain close ties with Byzantine Egypt and the wider Christian world. However, with the spread of Islam in the 7th century, Nubia once again found itself at the crossroads of cultural and religious change. Despite the various phases of conquest and foreign influence, the Nubian people have preserved a resilient cultural identity throughout their history. Their contributions to art, architecture, religion, and statecraft have left a lasting legacy in Africa and beyond. From the early days of Tasseti and Kerma to the heights of the Kushite Empire, the Nubians forged a civilization that not only shaped their own destiny, but also influenced the broader course of history in the Nile Valley and the ancient world. Today, the heritage of the Nubian people is celebrated as an integral part of Africa's rich and diverse history.